Welcome back, everybody, to the 5th and final round of the DreamHack HCT Grand Prix here at DreamHack Summer in Sweden. We've had 4 incredible rounds of play already today, and now we are getting ready for our 5th and final round of the day. Of course, we're still going to have another 4 rounds of Swiss tomorrow, followed by the cut to top 16, but all things considered, today has gone pretty smoothly. And bringing you the action for our final round of the day is going to be Falcone and Derek Brown, a couple of fresh dudes here on the desk. And we've got a couple of fresh dudes for you guys to cast.
We do indeed. 2 of my absolute favorite players. To see them both at 4-0 just feels absolutely amazing, with both Muzzy and Boardcontrol, who will be our last players we're seeing today, or the first match of the final round for today. I couldn't be happier to see both of these players here.
You're like a proud father, aren't you, Derek? Or more like a proud brother.
I think an adoring fan is more appropriate. There is nothing I could teach these people. Like casting with Board, the one time I did with Boardcontrol, was very weird because I realized everything intelligent I have to say comes from watching Board stream about 8 hours a day.
Yeah, I mean, 2 truly great players. Muzzy from the NA side of things, Boardcontrol leading, I think, in the UK scene. It's
pretty undeniably.
We have a lot of UK players here at DreamHack Sweden, or DreamHack Summer rather, and a lot of them that have never been to a DreamHack before. We've got players like Lightswitch, Pieman,
Cold Hands
as well. We've got many of these players, but Boardcontrol, of course, sitting smart at 4-0. Shouldn't be a surprise to anyone.
Yeah, it really shouldn't. And one of the other things to bear in mind is that these players, I would be very unsurprised if they have been comparing notes and building a lineup together, because we do see they have pretty much identical lineups, at least in terms of archetypes.
Yeah.
It's in the slight decisions in terms of particular cards that they differ ever so slightly. But you do see very often Muzzy and Boardcontrol, they're in the same circles. They're practicing together relatively often.
Yeah, I mean, even the fact that they're both bringing Hunter, right? That in itself, I think it was, I don't know why I'm trying to stretch my memory here. I've got the list in front of me.
Right,
yes, they're recruit hunters, obviously, as that does seem to be the hunter deck of choice at the moment. There's a few spell hunters in there somewhere, but nowhere near the extreme of the recruit hunters.
Yeah, I mean, the meta really has shifted quite significantly since DreamHack Austin just a couple weeks ago, when it was pretty much entirely Spell Hunter, and Recruit Hunter had only recently come across anybody's radar, whether it be for ladder or for tournament play. But now it really has secured itself in a pretty powerful spot, I would say, in some of these tournament lineups. So I'm excited to see it in action a little bit more over the course of this weekend. But we do have our picks and bans actually ready to go. So let's take a look at what these 2 dudes have chosen to bring to the table here. And we've got Muzz, ever beautiful in his Tempo Storm swag. I actually did get a chance to try on that Tempo Storm jacket, not this very same one that Muzzy is wearing, but one very similar. Let me tell you, very comfortable, very rainproof.
Well, that's all you need, right?
So practical.
And like Derek said, the guys have obviously been practicing together. They obviously have similar lineups, and as a result, they obviously have the same ban.
Yeah, it would be weird if there was a mistake. I think there's a slight graphical error here, as once again, they're both bringing Hunter instead of Warrior. But it's identical, no matter what. The only real difference I can find between their lineups whatsoever is that Muzzy has got the Secret and Spell Hunter variant of Recruit Hunter. Whereas Boardcontrol has got the minion version with the likes of Tar Creeper and Firefly in the early game, which, I mean, I would personally have to put Muzzy ahead in that front. I feel Spellstone is a super powerful card in that matchup, but they are both such strong and proficient players with this deck. I'm kind of excited to see just a match where it doesn't come down to deck building or decisions in terms of what tech choices you're bringing, although that is often a very important and well-respected part of playing Hearthstone and being a professional player. It's just play. This is all it comes down to here. It's nothing to do with the decks, which is like a pure look at the game and the prowess of these players.
You're right. I mean, preparation has been a big part of why certain individuals have beaten other individuals, at least in today's tournament so far. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm right along there with you, Derek. It would be cool to just see the guys just try and outplay each other. I'm curious as to why there's no Carnivorous Cube in either of these Recruit Hunter decks. I believe the
Seeping Oozling.
The Carnivorous Cube.
Yes.
Right.
The Seeping Oozling can trigger on the Carnivorous Cube.
Oh, sure. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because usually there's the Spell Secret version that does have the cube versus the other one which does not.
I thought you were saying that a Seeping Oozling is a kind of carnivorous cube. I was like, I mean, lore-wise, you are technically correct, I guess.
I can speak from experience when I can say that Seeping Oozling can pull the Carnivorous Cube Death Rattle, and you think, my God, I'm a genius putting these 2 cards in a deck together. No.
Yeah.
No.
I just thought you'd gone mad and were naming Hearthstone cards at that point, honestly.
Secret Keeper.
Goldshire.
You're not wrong. Yeah.
Finders Keepers. I was wrong earlier today.
That was very wrong. That was excessively wrong.
It was excessively wrong. All right. Based solely on level of play, because we have some very similar decks here, almost identical, some would say. Who is going to move into day number 2 at a 5-0 perfect match record? And who will be taking their first loss of the day? Boardcontrol or Muzzy? Guys, I know you are big Boardcontrol fans.
It's
if Derek ripped his shirt off, it would probably say Boardcontrol, and I wouldn't be surprised for a second. Who's it going to be, Derek?
I mean, this time I'm actually going to go on previous match experience, as in the finals of Copa America Season 2 that we've had, one of the tour stops earlier on. Muzzy did come up victorious against Boardcontrol. They both made it through to the finals. So based on that, I'm giving it to the Muzz.
Oh, well, that makes it easy for me because I can say Boardcontrol just to level the playing field. So, Boardcontrol.
Well, we're going to find out here. Our final round of the day is about to begin, and it's going to be Muzzy versus Boardcontrol.
How could you not pick Boardcontrol, Darren? How could you do this to me?
I have to remind him that, you know, we're friends, but I got to keep him on his toes. You know, if he's not at the top of his game, I'm out of there. I'm unsubbing like that.
Darren,
Or Hoover is a good emote, but it's not that good.
You have to keep us all on our toes if we're standing to be fair. But anyways, we're just about ready to go. Let's jump into game number 1.
Ooh, and we are going to be starting off with that very spicy Recruit Hunter from Boardcontrol, a deck list that I'm kind of happy to see in here because I think it's a very interesting talking point. It's had an interesting kind of history while it has been a deck in the last few weeks. But for Muzzy, it is the much more ubiquitous in this tournament, at least, even Warlock, where it's looking like it's going to be in a decent spot thus far. This is a very respectable starting hand. Obviously, if the Hunter does try to run away with any kind of early stuff, you can go with the Doomsayer. But as we can see from Boardcontrol's deck list, the amount of pressure that you can play in the early few turns of the game is very low indeed.
Yes, although he is keeping, of course, the Seeping Oozling, hoping to go off with that on turn 7, I guess, along with Play Dead.
Right.
That's one of the dream scenarios. And this Hunter, that's one of the things it does do. It has the ability to blow out its opponent. Just come turn 7, 8, it can just win all at once from absolutely nothing.
That's absolutely right. And it's worth saying at the moment for Boardcontrol, as he does pick up Hunter's Mark, the exact card I was going to bring up, if he does find himself falling behind in the early game, he's got possibility to play back against that, because obviously playing the minions like Firefly, Tar Creeper, Saronite, Chain Gang in the early game, those are anti-aggro cards because you are relying on the fact that control decks won't actually do anything in the early game. You won't need to fight back against their big minions because they don't come down until the later turns, at which point you're playing Seeping Oozlings, Katharina Winterwisp, and you'll just be winning on board anyway. But for Muzzy, he does have the double Mountain Giant ready to come down, and if Boardcontrol doesn't find a couple more answers here, he might not be able to withstand all this pressure because Muzzy's just found all his threats.
Secondary problem, when you're playing Spiteful Druid and you draw both Ultimate Infestations, that tends not to be a good thing. Well, it's a similar situation with Seeping Oozling, Katharina, and also the Silver Vanguard, as they are the only 2 Death Rattles, other than the Oozlings, obviously, in the deck. If Boardcontrol finds the Vanguard before he can drop Oozling, he is in big trouble.
Right, and I mean, this is the innate problem with Recruit decks. This will always be a problem, whether it's you're going for Possessed Lackeys. If you draw all your demons beforehand, it's not going to get anything. If you draw all your beasts or your Death Rattle cards before you can play Oozling and other such nonsense, you will not be able to get those powerful combos. And that is what this deck is. This is a deck that it has the potential to be disgustingly powerful when it's at its highest, and it's built to do that often, but not every time. There is a very strong fail state for this deck.
And, well, there's the Giant, which is the target for the Hunter's Mark that you mentioned a few moments ago, as Boardcontrol continues his infinite value. And, oh, no, never mind. Guess he just goes for the biggest minion here.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good, to be honest. Obviously, the main things he was looking for, as you mentioned, were Katharina Winterwisp, Silver Vanguard maybe, but not really, and Seeping Oozling as the main thing here, just to get that real synergy of the deck, which is to copy either Silver Vanguard or Katharina Wind or Katharina Winter Wisp. I always say something completely different.
That's why I just say Katharina.
Yeah, Katharina. And then get that truly disgusting combos with King Crush and the Devil Saws rolling.
The risk, if there was a Seepling Oozling on offer, is that if he then does draw the Vanguard, then suddenly both of them become just 6 mana, 5/4s.
Yeah.
Which is a risk that I don't know how comfortable I'd feel. So he's considering, I guess, the Taunt, but like I said before, I did like the idea of just going for the biggest minion and trying to deal some damage with it later.
Yeah. I like that as well, because obviously the kind of backup plan for Boardcontrol, if this doesn't work out, is pretty much just Deathstalker Rexar, because after all your threats come out, if you're not playing the Dire Frenzy or whatever the shuffle cards back into your deck is called, you do not have the ability to play any more threats really until you find Deathstalker Rexar. But now with double Seeping Oozling, no Silver Vanguard has been found, so he has the ability to summon 2 Charged Devil Saws fresh from his deck.
Yeah, or the Lich King being the
okay.
only remaining
yeah.
other than that. Which is good in its own right? It's good in its own right, just because it's going to start summoning Death Knight cards. It's going to be there as the native body with the Taunt, which is relevant as well. Though it does sometimes feel like it takes away from the onslaught of charge minions, which, as you said, would be the case if it was just Charged Devil Saws.
But here for Boardcontrol, the name of the game isn't, from where I'm sitting, just slowly peter out threats one at a time. You don't want to be attacking your opponent with 1 minion at a time, because this even Warlock deck doesn't really have the ability to clear off wide boards of big minions, given that it is not, I assume, playing any copies of Twisting Nether, given that that has pretty much been isn't really played anymore now that Control Warlock isn't really a deck that much. You just don't have that strong answer to a nice big board. So Boardcontrol wants to condense his threats down to as few turns as possible so that he can put on the biggest offensive for the next few turns and just close out the game.
It's a little disappointing that he has to play this Houndmaster Shore into just a giant killing it, because one of the dreams with this deck is having Houndmaster Shore stick into the Seeping Oozling turn and then, you know, charging with this, charging with that, just win the game after. However, he felt the need to just absorb this 8 damage from the Mountain Giant just to stay alive for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. He obviously, as I said, doesn't have the necessary amount of removal pieces to actually deal with this, so he has to be proactive. That's kind of the name of the game of both of these decks here. Neither has strong reactive options, so it's just who can be the most proactive as quickly as possible rather than reactive. And at the moment, Muzzy's looking to actually come out on top of that, especially because if Boardcontrol does summon the Lich King here off of the Seeping Oozling, the Black Knight's got a thing or two to say about that. Black
Knight, not a tech that I've seen very much recently at all. And by recently, I mean in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
It's, is this the first appearance in this tournament today?
I think we might have seen it, I dare say, from Fino earlier, because, I mean, Boardcontrol, Muzzy, Fino, it's all very, very similar in terms of their lineups, but don't quote me on that, because there were a bunch of tech cards hidden in that, even Warlock. But it makes sense when one of the most popular decks being brought is Taunt Druid. One of the other most popular decks being brought is called Taunt Warrior, where the name of Taunt is literally in the title of the deck.
I just checked as well. Boardcontrol is also running the Black Warlock. As you said, the techs are going to be very similar. So now, though, Muzzy, well, he can deal a lot of damage. It gets tricky because he doesn't know whether to just push it all to the face and then give Boar sort of the control to use the charge cards himself, or whether he should try and clean them up himself. Trading in the Twilight Drake, if the Lich King pops out, is perfect for the reason that you mentioned before, the Black Knight. Charged Devil Sword would be a little bit more awkward, but I'm thinking it's still better to trade. What do you think, Derek?
Well, if you pop proactively here, obviously there's kind of no downside of doing it on your turn as to letting your opponent do it, if you see what I mean, because Charged Devil Sword would have charge anyway, and the Black Knight could deal with the Lich King if that did come down. Obviously, the downside is you don't get the damage through to face, but I think Muzzy needs to realize his hand here is not particularly offensive in terms of burst. It's just powerful in terms of what it can actually play onto the board. However, even then, the benefits of trading, if it is a Charged Devil Sword, I think he realized the numbers really don't work out all that well in his favor.
Yeah, I guess, exactly. Like the 8/5 Hex trade into it, it'd be killed off anyway.
Obviously, the real downside would be to go, if your opponent can play dead, which they would not be able to do if you killed it off first. But I think he's perfectly worked out the numbers here and realized both the Seeping Oozling and the Charged Devilsaur are going to have to trade into this Hooked Reaver. And if he's getting all that damage through to face in the meanwhile, he's now 3 damage off lethal.
That was a 4-mana card that just absorbed all of that.
Yeah,
and ate up one of the big threats that can come from Board Control's
exactly. That's a very important point. Because now Katharina Winterwisp can only summon King Crush.
Or Witchwood Grizzly. It does run 2 copies of the 5-mana 3/12 taunt.
Sorry, there is another copy of Charged Devilsaur in there, so if this Oozling finds the Lich King, then it could also summon that through. So I guess Katharina Winterwisp is still looking all right for the moment, because that first one came off Stitch Tracker.
Yeah, but there's 2 in the hand as well. There's 2 in the hand and 1 just came out the deck. So I believe we're out of Charged Devilsaurs. But King Crush and Witchwood Grizzly doesn't really do anything. That's the issue, especially in a situation like this.
Yep.
It sits and a giant just kills it, or the Black Knight just kills it, or what? Something kills it.
Yeah, and like I said, when both decks are just trying to be as proactive as possible because their reactive options just aren't there. Like, you've obviously got Silence for Muzzy, which could maybe take care of one of these. We saw the Hunter's Mark coming into play for Board Control, but it's not enough. You need to be the first player to really stick a big minion, and I mean, it just maths out pretty easily from what I'm seeing here. The Board Control's Recruit Hunter only really gets going on turn 6 when you can play the Seeping Oozling, and Muzzy's deck gets going on turn 3 when you can play a Mountain Giant. It just doesn't work out there for Board Control.
Yeah, even Warlock is just looking stronger and stronger over time, and it looks like the players have all been pretty unanimous on even Warlock's strength here, as we see the Witchwood Grizzly pop out from Katharina. That's pretty much going to be it, yeah.
Yeah, Black Knight able to take out the 12 health Witchwood Grizzly in truly disgusting fashion, and then closing out the game, which feels like a relatively big win for me for Muzzy, because the Even Warlock absolutely has the potential to run away with the series here. Against, obviously, the mirror of Even Warlock, it's got a very good chance against it. And against Taunt Warrior, the Taunt Druid, there are options available to the Taunt Druid, obviously in the form of Naturalize or a giant Spellstone to be able to deal with some of the bigger minions that the Even Warlock can throw down. But to be honest, it feels like it's going to be relatively similar to this, where they don't have the ability to really get their game plan going usually before the time that Muzzy just throws down a bunch of Giants and Twilight Drakes.
Right. Right, so solid start, good position to potentially just sweep the series. It can happen. We have seen a sweep or 2 today, and in Last Year Standing, it can happen pretty often. Board Control down to, the Druid and the Warlock. And what is your opinion at the moment of Taunt Druid, Derek? Because we've seen a healthy mix of different types of Druid today. Where does Taunt Druid sit?
I think for me, it's probably just about top of the pile. I think it's just unanimously good enough against like everything. Obviously, the likes of Shudderwock Shaman or maybe a Taunt Warrior that has the Cornered Sentry in there obviously is the big weakness, because they can shuffle, get beasts into your dead
Mage
pile.
as well with Polymorphs.
Yeah, stuff like that. But generally, it's just a good enough deck. I think it's just the power level is high enough that you are allowed to bring it. And I know certain players would disagree with me. I know Deathbooz in particular is a player who's doing tremendously well with his Twig.
He is. However, according to Lorinda, Deathbooz was saying he's really unhappy with his lineup. So he might actually agree with you.
I think he was saying he's like 8-1 with his Druid, though. But
that's crazy.
Personally, I feel like this is just the highest power level deck, which is a classic Board Control move. When he was playing, as I mentioned earlier, in the earlier Copa America Season 2 finals, and obviously all throughout as well, he was just playing the 4 best decks, and he does that pretty much every time. Him and Fino usually end up with the same lineup, and it normally does very well. Board Control at 4-0, Fino at 3-1, Muzzy with a very similar lineup indeed, also at 4-0. They're looking to be in a very good spot here.
Slow start for both players, though, as you'd expect from the Taunt Druid. Then again, why I say slow start, that Giant is getting cheaper and cheaper every turn. And come next turn, it's going to be Drakes, it's going to be Giants, it's going to be a Skulking Geist on turn 6, which also does damage against the Druid, right? Just getting rid of Naturalize, meaning that the Hadronox has to die through natural causes.
But for the moment, things really not going the way that Board Control would want to. Obviously, the Warlock does what it wants to in the early game every time, because all it wants to do against these controlless matchups is tap. So on turn 1 and 2, and obviously
Board Control wants Wild Growth. He wants...
Yes.
Even cards like Ferocious Howl would be okay this turn, just something to play.
Yeah.
No Spellstone present in hand either is a shame because it will just be destroyed soon by the Skulking Geist. He'd prefer to use it while he had the chance.
As for Muzzy here, I'm kind of wondering as to why he didn't tap on that last turn, because obviously he wouldn't have burned a card. He would be up to the full 10 cards in hand. The Mountain Giant, you know, it costs 4 anyway, so it probably doesn't make too much difference here. And I guess fatigue possibilities are kind of coming into play, especially because he's going for the Geist to destroy off the Naturalizers, as you mentioned. So the Hadronox is at a lot lower power level, but I would definitely have been tapping there. I feel like you just want as many cards as possible, find Gul'dan, stuff like that, to really push your advantage while you're so far ahead here.
Regardless, 4-9 hits the board. Like I said, from turn 4, it's Drakes and Giants pretty much constantly from Muzzy. The 3-6 does put a nice wall in his way, but I don't think it matters too much.
Yeah. I do also quite like the sequencing from Muzzy here of going for the Twilight Drake first, trying to bait out the copy of Naturalize if it's there from his opponent before he, I would imagine, destroys his opponent's Naturalizes with Geist before he even plays the Giant.
Yeah, yeah.
This is pretty cute, actually.
So Twilight Drake into Twilight Drake, 4-9 and 4-10, and between them they're going to take out the Ironwood Golem. It just may take a couple of turns.
And I say this is a cute play from Muzzy because I don't necessarily want to call it like a super good play, because there's obviously big downsides to this play in that you don't have a Giant on board on turn 4, which is what you want to do every time here.
Yep.
But the obvious benefit of it is there's no situation now in which his Giant gets naturalized. And I suppose that's just good enough, because if the Giant isn't getting naturalized, how do they deal with it? Especially when you have a bunch of other Drakes in play as well. This is a super scary board available here for Muzzy.
A little smirk from Board Control there. Muzzy will have seen that Board Control didn't actually lose any cards from his hand, which is not to say his play was wrong in the slightest, but it means it didn't quite work out as well as he'd have hoped. He'd have hoped to see, Board Control lose 4 cards just then, just to lower his resources. But unfortunately, Board has a lot of resources, many of them sitting on the board now, staring Muzzy down. Thanks, Oakhart. Good job.
Board Control also making a little bit of a face there when he played the Oakhart, maybe trying to bluff to his opponent that he doesn't have Hadronox in hand. I don't know, like, maybe Board Control just looks like that and I'm horrendously offending him. But obviously he could bluff to his opponent that there's still a Hadronox in deck, so that it would be a 50% chance.
That's true.
As to whether or not he got that one out.
That is true.
I suppose it was actually drawing the Sleepy Dragon at the first turn was probably what he was making a bit of a face at.
Yeah, the fact that he's only got the 1 dragon to pull is a minor annoyance, but things are looking fine for him now, especially considering how slow the start of the game was. He's still got 29 health, so he's not at risk of a surprise, silence lethal.
Yeah. And I know, I mean, this is what makes Taunt Druid such a good bring for me. I think it was Frozen who was saying while he was streaming the other day, he doesn't play Druid, he plays Wild Growth, Nourish, and Hadronox, because that is kind of the core of the deck at the moment. You just throw down these powerful minions on curve, and how can your opponent really react to it in a strong way? And Muzzy is still ahead on board here. For Board Control, he cannot kill off his own Hadronox immediately, but I believe you were talking about this earlier on in the day. Even if your opponent silences your Hadronox, it's bad, but as long as you're not under too much pressure, it's not that bad. You can still resurrect it with Witching Hour into Cube straight away.
Or if Muzzy doesn't deal with the Hadronox and you have Cube in hand, you just go ahead and Cube that.
Right,
the Cube will then die, you get 2 more Hadronox. It means that the silence...
It's a little bit slow.
It's slow, but it means the silence isn't available then to play on the Cube, which is a bigger disaster.
Good point.
And against a deck like the Warlock, usually it shouldn't be so slow that he ends up dying in the process.
But for Board Control here, very difficult decision, because, I mean, as we just went down the avenue of playing Hadronox, it doesn't feel that bad to me. You don't have Cube to follow up with Witching Hour Cube, but basically what it means is if your opponent wants to play a big minion like the Hooked Reaver, a Giant, something like that, you can actually just kill off your own Hadronox pretty effectively.
Yeah, well, it's decision time for Board Control. Maybe he doesn't think enough taunts have died for him to make the most of this.
Yeah.
Drake would have just cleared off the Twilight Drake, which was something. But tell me why you like this one, Derek.
I think here for Boardcontrol, he's realizing, I mean, like I said you can play Hadronox if you're not under too much pressure. And he's realizing, I'm never going to be under so little pressure again for the rest of the game unless he can make a giant Hadronox board happen, because Muzzy, now that he's at 15 health, he can play his hooked Reavers. He's probably got Giants in hand at this point. Gul'dan will be coming down at some point as well. So for Boardcontrol here, even if Muzzy tries to play around the fact that Hadronox won't be able to kill itself off, it could even wrath his own Hadronox and then play Witching Hour. And obviously there's no way to immediately resurrect it until that particular spicy cue.
Well, there we go.
Drawn.
Trade away the Hadronox, resummon the Hadronox, and then summon 2 more later on, after a board full of taunts. Obviously, that's probably more key here. Still a little bit annoying that Boardcontrol hasn't actually played that many taunts this game.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Ironwood Golem, Primordial Drake, that's pretty much it, right? There's not been a Lich King.
Yeah.
There's not been a Sleepy Dragon yet. That's still sitting in the hand. Just 2 taunts, is that enough?
And I think that's one of the main considerations as to why he was going for Sleepy Dragon, or considering going for Sleepy Dragon at an earlier point, because adding a 4/12 to the Resurrection pool feels fantastic indeed. And as if you can hit the Lich King, obviously, as well, that's knocking about in all these Taunt Druid deck lists, then that really helps to boost the amount of damage you're pushing forward.
I'm sad there's no Gloom Eater in this deck, Derek.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm sold on the Gloom Eater, to be honest. It's like, it's a 1-attack minion. After you play Hadronox, you want to kill them, and it can, I mean, Hunter Ace was talking about it, and he kind of brought me around to it in that it value trades with a Primordial Drake, which obviously feels pretty good.
Yeah, not many cards do that. Oh, the Lich King does, I guess. Okay, so he cubed the Silenced Hadronox and then summoned a healthy Hadron.
Yeah, I was sat there thinking, what's happened? Yeah, which is actually a pretty, I don't know, a pretty cute way of going about it, because this is again one of Boardcontrol's biggest strengths, I think, in this. In his play is that he knows the breakpoints very, very well from what his opponent can actually throw down. He knows that at most, there's only going to be a tiny bit of burst from like a Hellfire or something like that. He's not going to be dead on this turn. And if the Giant sticks around till the next turn, then Hadronox he can just kill off his own Hadronox by attacking it in. And he can also play the Sleepy Dragon, or he can also play the Primordial Drake with a hero power, something like that.
Yeah, this is sort of Boar's way of getting as many taunts as quickly as possible, I guess. Sort of slowly in the short term, but it's going to really pay off in the long term. To get rid of the Hooked Reaver, he can trade both of his minions in. He gets the 2 Hadronox, but then there's still those 2 8/8s staring at him. Which is fine, I guess, because he does get his 2 taunts back to block them. It's getting a little bit dicey.
Yes, it kind of is, but at the same time, you can just play Sleepy Dragon on this turn. You have 3 taunts very healthily in the way.
It's true.
Even if they have fully activated Spellstone or something they can play, they're still not going to be getting through all those taunts. And then if they don't sacrifice off their own Giants, obviously when you... okay, I should say the main thing I'm looking at the start of this turn is attack both the Cube and the Hadronox into the Hooked Reaver. And then you have 2 Hadronoxes on board, and you just kill them both off, or at least one of them off, and you're just sitting pretty.
I think the main flaw in my logic there was not realizing, of course, Boar is still going to have all 10 of his mana available after doing this. Wow, actually going to cube the second Hadronox, destroying it and summoning a lot of Ironwood Golems.
I mean, I guess with this line of play, it's lower value in the later game, but Boardcontrol actually realizing here that doesn't matter at all. I was saying at the start, there's not too much reactiveness in the Warlock deck. It has to be able to fight back with its own minions on board, and you do not fight back against turns like this from War.
There's no Twisting Nether in Muzzy's deck, and even if there were, is that really a board you want to cast Twisting Nether on? I don't think it is.
Yeah, not really. You're going to be summoning it all back right away anyway, with a couple of Hadronoxes knocking about in there as well. I think Boardcontrol is looking to have taken this series, and I think actually played surprisingly well. Not getting flustered, I think, was the main thing that saved him here, because when we were looking at playing the Hadronox instead of the Sleepy Dragon when he could on turn 10, he could have gone with the Sleepy Dragon, which, you know, seemed more defensive and more powerful in the immediate, but if his opponent played the best possible scenario with Giant into Giant and all that nonsense, Boardcontrol was still absolutely fine. There was no real threat of him dying that game.
But he ties up the series now. That's a nice big smile for Boardcontrol. Yes, Derek, that is always how our Boardcontrol looks. There he is. And now it's down to Muzzy to pick which of his 2 decks to try and counter the Druid. Do you think he goes for the Mirror, or do you think he goes for the Recruit Hunter?
I would imagine he probably goes for the Recruit Hunter. It's not a matchup I've played all too much of. I know you've played a lot more Recruit Hunter than I have. I would have to imagine there's a couple of reasons why Muzzy would go for that opposed to his own Druid. It's number one, you have the potential massive upside of just getting the perfect hand and going for Seeping Oozlings, Katharina, all that nonsense, and summoning an unstoppable amount of giant Devil Saws. But also because he's got the secret package and Spellstone in hand to get things going with. And Spellstone is something that Druid struggles with quite severely, I would say.
Could this hand be any better? I haven't played the list that runs secrets at all. I'll be honest about that. But I mean, just looking at this, 2-drop into 3-drop into Spellstone into Oozling. If he can draw Play Dead, which I'm assuming he runs, we just double check. Yeah, he runs 2 copies of Play Dead.
Yeah.
If he can get that, again, high potential of that blowout start that just wins the game before Hadronox can even come down.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering what cards you would throw. I mean, Venom Strike Trap isn't particularly good here. It's obviously more just to power up the Spellstone for on turn 5. But Boardcontrol, once again, has not found that hand he was looking for. But last series, he also had a pretty dire starting hand and managed to turn it around very beautifully.
I mean, this is also stating the obvious a little bit at this point about the Venom Strike Trap, but just the fact that it could be any of the 3 secrets. He runs Explosive, he runs Wandering Monster. Yeah, okay, maybe Venom Strike Trap doesn't do anything, but it may prevent Boardcontrol from hero powering the face, just because he doesn't want to hero power into Wandering Monster.
That's a fair point. And that's something we see from a lot of players, is just not activating secrets at all because the game has slowed down so much they realize getting in face damage doesn't matter. And because decks like Taunt Druid and Shudderwock Shaman have such unbeatable late game scenarios, delaying the game by not activating secrets and just letting the game play out is perfectly good. As Muzzy continues to draw a pretty stellar hand indeed. Obviously the the Deathstalker Rexar was found to go potentially coin Oozling into Deathstalker Rexar. There are some matchups where you really don't want to change the hero power to the Builder Beast option. I think Miracle Rogue comes into my mind as the number 1 because they have no healing or taunt in the deck whatsoever, so it's much more valuable. But here it's perfectly good. You make big minions, and Druid sucks at dealing with big minions.
Yeah, on the other side, Boardcontrol has found Oakheart himself. He has played a Wild Growth already. If he can find a Nourish in the next turn or 2, then that Oakheart could come down at 9 mana. Naturalize could hit the Hadronox pretty fast, and actually Boardcontrol could be back in with a shot as Muzzy picks up Houndmaster Shaw and just throws it straight down. This could be Shaw into Oozling next turn. That would be crazy. This may just be naturalized.
Do you reckon just to deal off with a Shaw?
It sucks.
It does really suck.
Boardcontrol can't attack with the Oakheart unless he plays Ferocious Howl, which is using up half of his mana already.
You can then play the Spellstone as well, which is
do that,
pretty good, but...
So what do we let Ferocious Howl, Spellstone on the 4/4, and then the problem is Oakheart still lives.
Yeah.
I guess he could then naturalize the, the Shaw. I guess he could then naturalize the Shaw, but then,
I mean, this is why Shaw has made it into the deck list, because when it was first announced, people were like, oh my god, this is nuts. And then people took an objective look at the power level of Rush as opposed to Charge, and people thought, oh, it's not actually that good. I'm not getting the best outcome possible a lot of the time. And then people realized you just play it on 4 and they have to kill it off, or you're so far ahead.
It's got 6 health. It's not easy to deal with on turn 4.
It's not indeed.
As Boardcontrol picks up Hadronox there, so it's not going to be coming from Oakheart. Probably not the end of the world if he can get the other Ironwood Golem, but there you go, it does eat up the Naturalize, giving Muzzy all of the resources he could possibly need this turn. I'm pretty sure his turn 5 has been set in stone for a little while though. It's going to be the coin, it's going to be the Oozling, and there's Play Dead. Oh, that changes things though. Now he could go Spellstone into Oozling, coin, Play Dead.
Yeah, I mean, he kept Spellstone in his hand, so playing Spellstone on curve kind of has to be his first port of call on turn 5 anyway, or why would he keep that plus the secret in his hand? But I guess he's thinking, with the potential for Play Dead Spellstone on the following turn, this I actually like a little bit more, because as we've seen consistently against Taunt Druid, it's not slowly petering out your threats that wins, it's making the single strongest turn possible that wins. And what this sets up for on the following turn is Spellstone Play Dead into hopefully kill off your own Seeping Oozling, which is just completely absurd. You will be so far ahead on board at that point. The Master Oak probably won't even be able to wrestle things back, especially as Hadronox has already been drawn and can't be summoned off the Oak.
Yeah. Boardcontrol going to elect to deal with the Oozling on his own terms. There's the Lich King. The worst one, right? In this position. It has to be.
For Boardcontrol.
Yeah, the worst one for Boardcontrol.
Yes, yeah. I was going to say, for Muzzy, this is great.
The best one.
Yeah. Okay.
Could have made that clear.
Yeah, I'd take a Lich King plus a Lich King card plus Taunt +1/+1 over the Devil Sword. Feels pretty good to me, as he's just going to be pushing forward as much damage as possible. And, you know, to Boardcontrol's credit, he played around the potential for play dead, because this is actually something that Boardcontrol probably will have mind games through, because Muzzy full kept on the mulligan, I believe, which means he kept a secret off the mulligan. Would you ever keep a secret off the mulligan without a Spellstone? And so Boardcontrol's thinking, why would he go coin Oozling instead of playing Spellstone on 5? It's because he's got a play dead in hand, so he has to kill it off beforehand. Or maybe he just thinks it's worth playing it off, and I'm giving him way too much credit.
The strange thing about the play dead and the death rattles and everything is that actually the Hunter does eventually run out of stuff it can do with its death rattles. The play dead can just be dead, but it doesn't matter if Deathstalker Rexar is in the hand, ready to just build some beasts and create even more threats.
Yeah. And, I mean, will that even matter, or will it just be damage coming through here? This is what? 12, 14 damage, 19 with the play dead, and then on the following turns, charged Devil Swords are probably going to be closing out the game very quickly indeed. It's a little bit unfortunate for Muzzy that the charged Devil Sword was found there, so he can't get full charge beast value with Katharina Winterwisp. And especially because he's not even playing the Witchwood Grizzlies. That does mean only one minion can be summoned off Katharina.
Oh, he's not? Okay. Oh, there's the other Ironwood Golem as well. That's not a good draw just before playing Oakheart, as both of those have been drawn now. Hadronox has been drawn, which I believe means Boardcontrol will only be summoning Dragon Hatcher from this Oakheart. He does run 2 copies of Dragon Hatcher. So if one is in the hand, so that is something.
It's not great, though. As Boardcontrol looks at the camera, he knows this was not what he wanted to happen whatsoever. And Muzzy carrying on pretty beautifully with plan A here in just delivering a huge amount of damage. On the next turn, Katharina Winterwisp will obviously be able to get a charged Devil Sword that can attack through to face. So Boardcontrol has to make some much more powerful defensive options.
I don't think there's anything Boar can do. The Poisonous Minion will deal with the taunt that the Dragon Hatcher summons, and then Boar is defenseless.
Yeah.
Katharina will just finish the job here, and Boardcontrol is about to be very dead.
I think that is probably going to be about it. But for Boardcontrol then, if he does end up losing this series, which we can see, I think this is pretty much checkmate in Muzzy's favor. Boardcontrol then has the matchup that Muzzy took right at the start of the game, because he will have the Even Warlock up against the Recruit Hunter from Muzzy. And I would have to imagine Boardcontrol might even be in a better scenario than against his opponent, because if there's any matchup that Spellstone happens to be weak to, it's the Even Warlock. It's got Hellfire, it can even get Defile to work out to clear things off. You have a lot of counterplay against that. And again, you can just play Giant on turn 3 or 4 and just start killing them before they can even get Seeping Oozlings down at all. Yeah,
but then interestingly, Muzzy will have the Druid if he does lose with the Hunter as well. So Boardcontrol very much on the back foot. Gonna give it his best shot, though. We've seen Even Warlock as a fairly consistent deck throughout this entire tournament today. We've seen a lot of Even Warlock games as well. As Lorinda was saying before, it's not really eating up the bans.
Yeah.
So we're just seeing it.
Absolutely. As it's, I mean, you said it's been looking consistent. It is a consistent deck. That's the point of the deck. Like, nothing in it is too ridiculously powerful. It's just being able to hit Mountain Giant on turn 3 or 4. It feels like every game is what's so truly disgusting about it.
Boardcontrol going for the full mold there, even though all of his cards say 2 in the top left corner. I'm surprised that he's not tempted to keep the Doomsayer.
Really? What are you hoping to hit with the Doomsayer in the early turns? I mean, I suppose you can use it to set up for a Giant the turn before, but in the early turns, it's just secrets that the Hunter's playing down. I think I like the full mulligan here to look for Hellfire, I suppose, to get the dealing with that, what is going to be a fully activated Spellstone, or Giant, as Boardcontrol just decides, hey, I'll find both.
Yeah, that's way better. Skulking Geist even gets rid of play dead if that's
good point. And also Hunter's Mark, which can be really valuable in this matchup.
Yeah, probably. In theory, the Hunter's Mark's probably more valuable before turn 6 anyway, to deal with the Giant, as we saw Boardcontrol do earlier when it was the other way around.
But if you only have to stick one minion, like if they can't deal with a Lich King or a Hooked Reaver or something like that, it's not bad at all.
But yeah, it's just going to be, I expect, more tapping from Board, unless he wants to put down some Fury Protector as a way of getting rid of these pesky secrets, I suppose. I think I prefer just the tap and the pass. Yeah.
Yep. Me too. You don't really want to be attacking him with this Sun Fury Hunter at all. You're quite happy just to let these secrets do their thing, I suppose, for the moment.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Having said that, maybe being able to play the Sun Fury Protector into a freezing trap to protect the Mountain Giant against that would have been fairly valuable, just so that you can start closing out the game a lot quicker.
Ooh, it's 2 of the charged beasts in Muzzy's hand already. That's exactly what he wants to see, and having to do exactly what Board did against him earlier and drop Houndmaster Shaw into a Giant's path.
As Boardcontrol does his signature move of just going, oh, what do you do? What do you do to a situation like this? He kind of has to kill off the Houndmaster Shaw, but it's very probably freezing trap from his opponent where he's sat.
Yeah. This is okay. Leaving Shaw alive never feels good, but 2 8/8s with Taunt is pretty good on the flip side of that. And it's unlikely that Seeping Oozling comes out this turn. Oozling would be a disaster, though, and it could be coined out. Boardcontrol just has to hope not to see that.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Spellbreaker, obviously, to deal with it if necessary. But for Boardcontrol here, now I actually start to question the Sun Fury play a little bit more heavily even of not playing it, I should say, on turn 3 when he tapped as well, because it allowed for this possibility, obviously, because he kept it back in hand, so he could put the Taunt up in play. But no matter what secrets his opponents played, being able to attack in with the Sun Fury first felt really good, just so that you could start attacking with the Mountain Giant, because then Muzzy would have to play super defensive, whereas if Muzzy is allowed to play aggressively, offensively, to try and get the maximum value from his cards, that's where Boardcontrol might start to suffer.
That's a good point. It wasn't an easy call in the slightest, but yeah, Boardcontrol inevitably lost the ability to attack with Mountain Giant that turn. He can attack with the Sun Fury Protector next turn, I guess. It doesn't look like it's dying or going anywhere.
But that feels like 8 health that his opponent's got, or a Houndmaster Shaw that lived for a turn.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. He's going to go and try and trade it into the 3/3, I guess, because if the trade was successful, he could then back it up with the Dread Infernal and clear everything. It's not going to be successful, obviously.
Yeah, it could have been Venom Strike Trap, however, which would have summoned a 2/3 obviously as well, which would have been a contestation for the Mountain Giant, which would have been pretty scary actually. And I think he's still afraid. Oh no, it would have activated obviously beforehand.
Goodbye, play dead. Muzzy probably doesn't care too much. He's got 2 of his beasts in his hand already, and no way of activating them regardless. Let's go with Deathstalker Rexar and start building some beasts.
That's right. This is a build a beastie kind of game, and these are some of my favorite games. I do love to see beasts being built. I think it's one of the most skill-testing aspects in Hearthstone. It's I don't know if it's become more or less complicated since the rotation. Some of the cards, the real powerhouse cards like Rat Pack, have obviously rotated out. But the ability to go for lifesteal, kind of with a lot more lifesteal beasts coming in, kind of confuses things a little bit more once again.
There's a lot more lifesteal, there's a lot more rush, and there's more poisonous. And the kind of different combinations of that, it makes the card more powerful. And yeah, I think it makes it more complicated as well.
With Boardcontrol now kind of suffering from what even Warlock always does. Once you've played your Mountain Giants, your Twilight Drakes in the early turns, until you get through to Lich King, your Hook Reavers have activated, you can't really play that threatening of a minion, to be perfectly honest. The Dread Infernal is the best he can push forward. And Muzzy, for the moment, has the ability to just take things nice and slow, as long as he doesn't let his opponent play as long as he doesn't play too passively and too slowly. He's very much in a position where he could wrestle back this board.
Yep, and Charged Devastator is a good start towards that. Obviously, Boardcontrol will have plenty of ways to deal with it, though Defile/Hellfire would result in losing his Skulking Ghost as well. It may actually entice a trade out of Boar. Spellstone feels like a waste. I mean, just trade and Lich King.
Trade and Lich King, yeah.
Good,
that's definitely my first port of call this turn that I would be looking at.
He would mill a card if he did that.
Oh, okay. And he doesn't have Gul'dan yet.
So maybe that's a slight cause for hesitation.
I mean, you can't get to the point where you've activated your hooked Reavers this turn, which kind of sucks. But outside of that, what are you doing? I think I'd probably just accept the milled card here.
I agree.
It's just an 8/8, and even without the effect that you get from the Lich King card, obviously, which could be very valuable indeed if you hit something like Frostmourne for burst damage.
The only alternative really is the Sunfury Protector Shroom play, which doesn't look good in the slightest. No, I agree. I think Lich King has to come down here, and as you said, Frostmourne is insane. Death and Decay is insane. Death Coil is pretty strong as well. Obliterate, yeah, it's not bad either.
Yeah, it's actually all right, isn't it? If you have the health total when you've healed up, then you can do something pretty impressive by just killing off a key taunted beast.
And set up Hooked Reaver at the same time.
Oh, that's actually a very good point, yeah. Obliterate into double Hooked Reaver on turn 10 could be a very devastatingly powerful combo. As Muzzy is left with a pretty difficult choice here, actually, because generally the cheaper options tend to be the better ones in my finding, because you just want to be, putting them out, especially while you have other cards in hand. But Raptor Hatchling, shuffling an extra 4/3 beast into your deck, I guess it's not actually that bad, is it? Because it just gives you more beasts to activate with your Kathrina and Seeping Oozlings. It's not great. It's really not great, but it's either that or nothing. You've only got a charged Devilsaur left.
The problem is Tundra Rhino is so expensive. Yes, it's got a powerful effect, but okay, losing Doomsday isn't in the world.
Yeah, I think it's actually quite good. Now that I think about it, a 4/3, it's obviously way less good than a Devilsaur, but it's way better than nothing on the Death Rattle.
Yeah, okay. I can get behind that. Anything with stealth.
And it's cheap. In the immediate, it's a lot stronger play indeed.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to go for a high-cost minion.
Anything with stealth is pretty legit as well. It's just a slower charge, I guess. He's going to need to do a little bit of extra damage to the Lich King to deal with it, but that's fine. He's got Flanking Strike. He can summon more beasts next. I'll build another beast next turn. Boardcontrol doesn't have any way of dealing with that 7/6 whatsoever. He can put up more taunts.
Yeah, nothing really feels all that good, actually, at the moment. He can't value trade and then heal up with the Shroom Brewer. He can't go for Hooked Reaver with an activated effect. He doesn't want to silence his own Lich King.
Again, the only real play is Shroom Brewer, Sunfury Protector, and it still looks as bad as it looked before.
Yeah, I don't like playing cards with red mana cost. That doesn't feel good for me. Yeah, I think I like this as well, just putting forward as much pressure as possible. He realizes the difference between a 4/4 and a 7/7 when you're pushing forward this much damage really doesn't make all too much difference.
4/4 is still not a bad stat line for a 4-drop. 4 mana 4/4 is acceptable.
As we might even be seeing the king himself, King's Brush, coming onto the board here just to deal with the Lich King, which is pretty decent here for Boardcontrol. He finally has the ability to actually target this zombies that Muzzy created, and then afterwards can hopefully start pushing forward a proper amount of damage. But even so, because he healed up with the Shroom Brewer, he still can't even play the Hooked Reaver, even if he used the Obliterate here as well.
Yeah, it's just his turns aren't getting any better, are they? It's the beauty of playing carefully around the Hooked Reaver, of trying to make sure Boardcontrol's health stays above 15 and then just dies instantly. It does mean that he's not going to have these extra 7/7 taunts to defend himself. Does Bourne want to silence the 7/2? I don't think even he knows.
What does it do? Zombies, it would only lose the Death Rattle, wouldn't it? It wouldn't lose any stats. So, I mean, he's seen a Devilsaur and a King Crush from his opponent, so he knows there is, at most, only one...
Army of the Dead?
Oh, he milled Gul'dan.
And that's not a good board at the same time. It's not successful.
But it might be good enough, is the thing. If he could stick one minion, then Muzzy just can't deal with it. What can he get? Stubborn Gastropod with Exploding Bloatbat or something silly like that?
Yeah, well, he could go for the 5 mana 1/3 rush, with Poisonous, with
oh, what,
the
skittering
cave,
skitterer.
with the Cave Hydra to deal with 3 of them.
Okay,
That's the best I can think of. That's one I've used many times, Darren. I know that combo well.
This is actually pretty nice from Boardcontrol because he is now starting to realize if his opponent has to use King Crush, 9 mana deal 8 damage to clear off the board, he's in a very good spot indeed. And making one last ditch attempt to close out the game with this last hurrah of minions before Muzzy just runs away with value from the hero power of Deathstalker Rexar. I think Boardcontrol's fine here.
He still has the silence in his hand as well, so if Muzzy did come up with something stupid like Gastropod and Bloatbat, then yeah, just silence it, go face, win the game. Muzzy needs something proactive to win this, and he didn't get a proactive Build-A-Beast. You've got a Build-A-Beast that's just going to kill him faster. Oh, it's got lifesteal. No, it's not going to kill him faster. It's going to be a really strange mechanic. Every time...
Well, he's still got Defile, hasn't he? Like,
yeah, but every time the Zombies takes 3 damage, or deals 3 damage to his own face, he heals 3 again as well.
Yeah, but Defile, it's not dealing any damage. It's just taking damage, isn't it? That's how lifesteal works. It has to deal the damage.
He's dealing damage to his own face and then gaining it back again.
Wait, really? Is that how it works?
That is how it works.
No way.
I've
got to be honest, I did not know that interaction.
I was very confused when I first lost to it as well, Derek. I had to go and research.
That's pretty bogus, to be fair.
I wonder if...
So Defile would take a very long time.
Yeah, that's a good point indeed. Kind of like the old Armor Smith into Volcano days. Ooh.
Yeah. Basically a bit of Tide Hydra without the downside. In fact, even if it drops to 0, it goes back up to 3 again.
Right.
Which is quite ridiculous.
So only 12 damage on this turn as Boardcontrol is finally able to activate his Hooked Reaver. He knows the interaction, thankfully. He's done his Hearthstone-y homework in this scenario. And he realizes if his opponent couldn't actually deal with the board on the previous turn, how will he deal with it on this turn? And it looks like the matchups are going according to plan. Unless Muzzy can find something pretty incredible off of the Build-A-Beast here, Boardcontrol is very likely going to be equalizing this to 2 games apiece.
They are not incredible cards.
Maybe Hunting Mastiff would give him enough damage? Nah.
A Mastiff with the Raptor, actually?
Yeah, I'm thinking, I don't know.
He'd only have 8 mana to spend.
8 mana, yeah. He'd only pen 2 of them.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel all too great.
I am sad we didn't see that interaction. I bet Twitch chat don't believe me.
That'll be a nice change of pace. Yeah, Muzzy has got nothing to fight back against this. And Boardcontrol, you know, I liked a lot of what he saw there. Obviously, we saw the Blood Reaver Gul'dan being played, and I was thinking as soon as it happened, maybe because Muzzy's hero power is so much better than Boardcontrol's in this scenario, and there's no ability to upgrade it without Gul'dan, Muzzy would be able to run away with the game. But we could clearly see that wasn't the case. Just not enough reactiveness available for Muzzy. And obviously, the primary win condition of going for Seeping Oozlings and all that stuff just didn't work out whatsoever. So it's going to be coming down to the even Warlock up against the Taunt Druid.
Yeah, here we go again. Same matchup we had earlier, but from the other side of things. And if memory serves, the Druid did take it away the first time round.
Yes.
Guess that makes Muzzy the favorite here.
If we're basing on past experience in terms of this series, then yes. And also, as I mentioned once again, in terms of previous tour stops, Muzzy, the victor of Copa America Season 2 earlier in this year, all the way across the world in Brazil. Boardcontrol coming so close, playing so beautifully in that tournament, but unable to quite get there. He hasn't got the exact hand he's looking for to get things going. Obviously, Muzzy has been a little bit more fortunate with finding those Mountain Giants, I believe, in the starting hands. But Boardcontrol manages to make me look like an idiot once again. He's pretty good at that.
That's pretty much your relationship with him.
I say stuff, he makes me look stupid.
Yes.
Yeah.
I should mention as well as his amazing achievements in tour stops this year so far, Muzzy is a DreamHack veteran. He did win DreamHack Montreal last year. So he's back, he's here. You know, the DreamHack champion title is one that he's used to, and he wouldn't mind getting back for himself as well.
I'm sure he wouldn't. The double DreamHack champion is an elusive title, to be sure.
There's only a few of them, and one of them already dropped out today.
God bless him. Boardcontrol obviously finally with a bunch of taps. Again, as I keep mentioning, demonstrating the sheer consistency of this even Warlock deck.
Yeah.
Managing once again to get the Giant into the Drake, into, I don't know, coin into the Skulking Geist feels pretty good as well, as Muzzy just has to throw down the cube.
Yeah, that's really not good for Muzzy. And look at his hand. Wild Growth.
Yeah, that's not a good hand.
Quite able to play it. Dragon Hatcher, Sleepy Dragon. Yeah, there's a Stubborn Gastropod in Boardcontrol's deck, which I have to admit I hadn't noticed before, but Lorinda has been talking to me about that snail all weekend, actually.
He will not shut up about that blooming snail. Yeah, it's an interesting inclusion. We're seeing it more from a lot of players, as Neil was explaining it to me. Obviously, Fino's bringing it as well. It's a pretty off-the-wall, even Warlock we see from both of these players, obviously with Black Knight in there, Skulking Geist, a lot of cards that are not all that common, but are working fantastically well for them so far in this tournament. They've clearly been doing their homework and beautifully predicted what the meta is going to be. As we can see in the results, the proof's in the pudding. Both of these players are 4-0. One of them, however, does have to go up 5-0. One of them will have to fall down 4-1. And at the moment, it's looking relatively even, but I have to say I would still favor Boardcontrol here, with the Skulking Geist able to destroy the Naturalizers. Even if Muzzy was able to find a Hadronox in a timely fashion, Boardcontrol is still in the spot where he's just pushing forward too much pressure.
And then sticking a good snail down to be safe. How does Muzzy deal with this, to be fair? Like, okay, Wrath is one of the few options. Primordial Drake, I guess, deals with the snail and nothing else. You can kind of see why players are playing this snail. You can see why they're putting it into the deck. Lorinda was saying that they're in some Even Shaman as well. I spoke to Tyler about this yesterday. We're not sure if it's a bit of a meme or if it's actually a serious inclusion in Even Shaman. But hey, it's doing some work right now.
Yeah, it is. I'll agree with you there. Yeah, it seems that Boardcontrol once again was right on the money with his tech inclusion. And he will just be carrying on to pile up the pressure. I mean, I've stated a few times so far that, you know, the Warlock does have to slow down around turn 6 or 7, which, you know, it has done. Last turn was Shroom Brewer into Gastropod, which is a decent turn. This turn is looking to be tap into Shroom Brewer or something useless like that. It's not a particularly powerful turn, but it's all of a sudden going to start ramping up once again. It could be the Dread Infernal this turn, as I see that, the Lich King, and then Gul'dan a few turns down the line as well.
It's just difficult for Muzzy to keep up at this stage. Second Dragon Hatch has been drawn as well, meaning Oakheart is significantly weaker than it would have been moments earlier.
Fluffy, Snuggles,
Gonna just go ahead, drop the Dragon Hatcher, get another Sleepy Dragon. And
it's not bad.
It's not bad. Is it good enough, though? I don't think so.
I would have to agree with you. Obviously, it soaks up a tremendous amount of Boardcontrol's board at the moment. All but, what, the Ooze and the smaller half of a Twilight Drake as well. But being able to develop the Lich King feels pretty fantastic as well. But actually, in that scenario, you leave up the Dragon Hatcher, which from where Boardcontrol's sitting could just lose him the game right away.
Oh, there's that tech again.
That's
Black
it.
Knight.
Muzzy shakes his head. His ingenious inclusion that him and Boardcontrol, I would assume, have come up with together ends up being his downfall, as Boardcontrol does take it 5-0 so far in this tournament. I think if Muzzy had to choose a player to lose to, Boardcontrol would be pretty high on that list, though. I know they're good friends as well as practice partners.
If you had to choose a player to lose to, Derek, would Boardcontrol be high up on that list?
I don't think... Can I choose to beat him? Is that an option instead? Okay, I'll go with Boardcontrol then, because it has and will happen again.
But yeah, great performance from both players. I mean, right down to the wire, all the way to Game 5, which is what you'd expect. But Derek, you were saying at the start of the series, you want to see a game where the players are trying to outplay each other rather than just